Alrighty then. So this is Tower of Babel Decoded, which is the exciting and thrilling topic of language codes and the Language Metadata Table, or LMT as it's known to its friends. And I am Richard Kroon, the Director of Engineering for EIDR, the Entertainment Identifier Registry. And let's just dive right into the LMT mission. So it's threefold. One is to provide a standardized list of language codes that can be referenced in media and entertainment workflows. Second is to provide best practices to go along with those so that we have consistent usage across the industry. And third is a commitment to maintain both. So they're continuing to evolve and keep up with the industry as it moves forward. And this all began back in the day at HBO when they discovered that their different systems were describing languages in different ways. English could be English, E-N-G, E-N, Anglais, who knows. It gets even worse when you start talking about Spanish with Latin American Spanish and Mexican Spanish and Argentinian Spanish. And all their systems were treating these things different ways and needed to standardize inside their own shop. And so they began developing this lookup code table, the LMT, which then Mesa Alliance asked them to bring to a larger audience and an industry audience become standardized. And so a standards group has been wrapped around this under Mesa Alliance's direction. It's had very good participation, very wide participation. Actually have exceeded the number of callers on our conference bridge at one point. So it's definitely been a very popular topic. And the first version of LMT came out last year. LMT 2.0 came out earlier this month, along with a set of best practices to go along with it. And so beyond just the internal need of having systems that will talk to each other, there are a variety of reasons why it's important to have standardized coding in general, language in particular, between multiple systems inside a single organization, as HBO found, within supply chains. Because anytime different systems are trying to communicate with different code base, in this case language code base, there is an opportunity for the need of translation, human intervention, which means cost, opportunity for error, and delay in process. And nobody wants any of those things. And so we tried to come together and come up with a set of codes that addresses the various language needs that are out there in the industry and that can be flexible to deal with languages in general at a high level, as well as drill down very specific as needed. And then those who are adopting the LMT as their standard should find themselves being able to easily differentiate between written and spoken language, or visual and audio language, as we say, because sign language is a visual language, and so it's also included in the standard. To be able to provide flexibility for how languages are documented while still being compatible and translatable to other systems. And the advantages of having the LMT manage this rather than each individual organization is that it's the collective knowledge of the universe of the media and entertainment industry coming together, and no one person has to bear the burden. It's being shared across that group, and that group is continuing to move it forward. The language codes, if you haven't been aware of it yourselves, apply all over the place. It's not just the language spoken in the original recording of a work. It's also the subs and dubs that go with that, the promotional materials, the descriptive metadata. And when you're trying to make an offer to a customer, you want to make sure that if you're offering this show for sale in French Canada, that you not only have the French-Canadian title, the Quebecois subs or dubs, depending on how you're doing this, the descriptive metadata, the synopsis, all these things need to be localized to that market. You need to be able to identify them so you can bring them all together and present them so both you can deliver them properly and the customer can select them easily. So it's all across the breadth. It goes up in as far as contracting all the way down to delivery. It's throughout the pipeline, throughout the workflow. And so what was adopted was IETF BCP 47. Easy to say, everyone should know it. It's the Internet Engineering Task Force, Best Common Practice number 47, tags for language identification. And what it is, it's sort of an Uber standard. It's a standard of standards. So it combines together standard codes that already exist for language, territory, country, script. All these things are brought together in one standard, so it's expressed in a standard way. And this allows you to describe dialects and how they're written, how they're spoken, to be very specific, such as specifying Parisian French, FR-FR, versus Quebecois, FRCA. You can specify, differentiate Mexican dialect Spanish versus the dialect of Spanish mutually intelligible across Latin America. So all these things have their own unique codes that can all be applied. And it is not only standardized by the IETF, which are the internet people, but also the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. Sure, why not? Who are the people who define web standards. So it is already the default code standard in HTML, XML, and the other W3C standards. So it's already there, you're already using it, you may not know it, but you need to use it also in your systems so that it can be communicated out to the outside people. And the real advantage of the LMT is because the top line there, that's what a language code could look like. It's language-script-region-variant-extension-private use field. And everything beyond language is optional in different combinations. So you have 9,000 different possible tags that can be combined in 40,000 different possible ways. And nobody wants a lookup list 40,000 long. No one will find anything. No systems will work with that. You want to narrow that down to the codes that are actually important to the operation, those that are actually in active use in the M&E industry. And then rather than having to make people always figure out how to combine them, remember, does the script go before the region or no, just have a lookup of the code. If they want to say Bulgarian written in Cyrillic as spoken in Bulgaria, they can look it up in the LMT, find the code, grab it, and move on. Or use the LMT as a validating reference as codes come in. So you want to have a simple way of doing this. The LMT provides that. And it's based on codes in actual use. So we don't have all 40,000 in the table right now. It's as someone comes up with a use case and says, hey, I need to deliver in this language. I need to have information coming to me and identify this dialect versus this dialect. Then we go forward with that. So right now, there are two flavors of Chinese. There's Mandarin and Cantonese. But there are a good half dozen or more dialects of Chinese. But so far, no one's delivering content in those languages. But as a spoiler alert later on, we'll talk about the fact that Asian languages is one of the areas we're moving into, being principally driven by Gracenote, who does deliver in those dialects, does deliver in those languages. It needs to have those added to the overall standard. So here's an example of the LMT itself, just some random examples grabbed out. I'm going to turn my back on you because I can't read it from this screen. And so we've got English, Spanish, Serbian, Mandarin, Armenian, Eastern Armenian, Armenian, Western Armenian, and American Sign Language. And so you'll see that we've got language groupings, so you can tell that Mandarin is actually part of the ZH Chinese family. Spanish is part of the ES Spanish family. You've got the audio language code. So in this case, that we're looking for here in the audio language tag for Spanish, 419 is the UN region code for Latin America. So that Spanish is mutually intelligible across Latin America is ES-419. You'll notice that American Sign Language has no audible language code because you can't hear sign language. So it only exists as a visual language, which is ASE. So all these different things, different ways of representing it. The display name gives the language in the native language. So it's showing you how you say Mandarin in Mandarin. So that you also have the English version, the native language version, so a number of different ways of expressing it. It's useful for a variety of purposes. And then, of course, our friendly next steps. As I mentioned, we are continuing to evolve the table. It's an active working group that has teleconference calls as well as face-to-face meetings. And the meetings bounce from different sides of the country. They're usually co-hosted with a MESA conference. And so where there's a MESA conference, there's often an LMT meeting as well. So right now there's light coverage in Latin American Spanishes, and that will be expanded out. Also extending coverage for Asian territories. Much of it being driven by Gracenote, but not exclusively. And so one of the big things we need is participation. Everyone's invited to participate. We encourage your submissions of use cases or examples. Trial the table, make sure it works for you. If it's got a problem, let us know so we can adapt it and fix it. Take a look at the best practices. Make sure that they actually make sense and are adaptable in your environment. If not, again, let us know, join us, and let's make it all better. Because if it doesn't have the codes the industry needs, people will then say, oh, well, it has everything but that, so I'm going to go off here and do my own thing. And then everyone starts doing their own thing and it all falls apart again. So we're trying to get everyone to narrow in and say, yes, this is what we're doing, this is what we need, and we all understand each other. And then for more information, the top set of that are email addresses if you want to contact someone at the LMT steering committee for various purposes. And then down below are links for the various documents that describe all this stuff, the website you can go to get the materials, to download a copy of the language metadata table as an Excel table, as you'd expect. You can also get it in XML if you'd like it that way. Plus the describing best practices. That is all I have to say about this, but there is much more to be said, and I encourage you to examine it. And I'm going to go on and on until you, okay, there you go. All right, so I'll say thank you.